Good afternoon, everyone. Mike Terry back for another review, another video. I just got back from a run before I got in the shower. Just thought I'd give you a real quick rundown of one of our famous forges in the sword community. That's Darksword Armory and their Guardlan sword. Now, this sword is one of the only two-handed Viking swords on the market that meets the kind of quality, and I use that term very loosely, that serious sword collectors are looking for. And it can run you roughly anywhere from 600 to about 700 bucks on the primary market. So I'm just going to give you my verdict first and kind of Tarantino it back a little bit in terms of what I like about it, what I don't like about it. I don't think that I would spend that type of money on a sword like this, even a sword as nice as this. I'm kind of like a fantasy nerd or whatever, and I love these type of swords, but full disclosure, this has had some work done. From West Beam and Lonely Wolf Forge. I mean, it has all the JB weld that was on the tang has been taken off, the peen has been redone, the wrap has been redone, and everything else, just because when I first took it out and I cut with it, it just wasn't reaching the kind of level of performance that I wanted. And my final verdict on this also is that it's more of a medium cutter. I wouldn't say like heavy targets, heavy water bottles, soda bottles, that kind of thing. I mean, if you have proper form, of course, but I wouldn't take it out into the field and rely on heavier targets, wood, and whatever other crazy things that people do with their swords these days, just because it's not built for that. So let's kind of take it out just real quick, nice and slow, keep a full profile of it. And I mean, the Guardlan sword, of course, is full tang, and the peen it's a Darksword Armory peen, so it says fully peened and hot peened and all that, but it's really just kind of epoxy within the handle, and I've actually attached a blog post with pictures from Wes when he was redoing it. If for what it is, it's okay. The sword is all right. If you got it secondhand or if you got it as a gift, like I got this one, definitely, you can cut with it. Would I rely on it in the fields? I doubt it. But yeah, let's just kind of take you through couple of things. I'll show you a little close up right there. So it looks like a 5-lobe, kind of type 10 almost Viking sword. Of course, it's not a true Viking sword because the hilt is too long, and two-handed swords didn't exist in the Viking world just because of how they fought with shields and axes and spears and everything else. But it is still a pretty nice sword for, like I said, what it is. But let's take it through its paces for cutting, and we'll go through some targets, and then you'll kind of see exactly what I am talking about. So, Darksword Armory, Guardlan sword. So, smaller water bottles that we all like to cut with, from the onset. Really simple. Not a swordsman, have studied Fury a little bit, kind of know a little bit about the forms, but check this. Not a good first impression, but of course that might be just my shitty form. Hold on. And just so you know, West Beam does an incredible edge, so it's nothing to do with that. I think it's just the edge alignment was way off. Let's try it again. That was better. So I'll bring it over. There's more, like breakage, I guess I would say, than there is like a clean, smooth cut. Even with Wes's edge, I don't really like the whippiness almost of the sword, and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. You hit it, the kind of nodes of percussion a little bit, and it a little bit whippier than some of the standard blades that I like, some of the other fantasy blades that I like, zombie tools, etc., etc. But let's kind of upgrade a little bit on the target. Kind of a little heavier target than the standard water bottle. That was a little better. Again, could be my form, but you can kind of see the ragged edges a little bit. So again, it has more to do with the edge alignment, but it's 5160 steel, which is great. But the initial bevels that we have on them and everything else they're not great. And then Wes sharpened it up, but just overall, I don't know. I don't really love the feel of the sword. And then finally, I just kind of called it a mid-range cutter because when you get to higher level targets like this, thick plastic kind of detergent bottles or soda bottles, something to that effect, it doesn't do everything that you want. I'll show you. was all right. You know, there was more strength. I had a little bit more push on that one. That was probably the cleanest edges that we've had. So it's okay, but I took a little bit more effort than some of the other swords that I've had. Just to kind of show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about. Hold on one second. One of the favorite swords in my collection, and I've made videos about this before, is the Big Bad Wolf from Zombie Tools. These things are absolute monsters, and they're built for destruction. They're built to go through really anything that you have, you know, out there. This is kind of one of their more elegant swords. I mean, I would probably put the Difos against any sort of wood, other steel, etc., etc. But I just want to kind of show you the difference a little bit between, you know, the Guardlan sword, something that's built like the Guardlan sword, and then something that's built like Zombie Tools builds, you know, their fantasy blades. So bear with me. And that's kind of the heaviest target that I have. That's an Arnold Palmer bottle, and the plastic is pretty thick. You know, to get through that, they break more than they slice clean, but to get through it, it takes, you know, some decent effort. But let's see how Big Bad Wolf does against a target like this. Like, there was no competition. Like, that hasn't even been modified by Wes. That just kind of came factory edge. And again, these break more than they slice, but if you see the edge, you know, and how that did against this versus, you know, something like that, I hope you saw it, because it took way more effort with the Guardlan than it did with this sword. So there are just kind of fundamental differences between something like Zombie Tools when it comes to fantasy blades and, you know, the way they're constructed, the way the edge is aligned and that type of thing, than there are, you know, for Guardlan and for Darksword Armory. So even with Wes's help, and just kind of going back to my original point, you know, if you buy something off the shelf from Darksword Armory for, you know, $600 to $700, you expect it to perform like a Corvette. And unfortunately, you know, you hear all the horror stories, you know, about clicking tangs and, you know, the peens falling apart and like everything else, and that's just not what you should have for $600 to $700, you know, factory. So, I mean, for me, am I gonna go Darksword Armory if I love the fantasy design of it? Because I'm like that. I love fantasy swords, and functional fantasy swords are very rare in our industry, maybe, but you know, I'll stick with Zombie Tools. I'll stick with what they got, you know, over DSA and kind of their quality. But hopefully they see videos like this. Hopefully they see kind of customer testimonials about their swords, and you know, get the tangs right and really construct a quality sword that people can get through targets very easily and not have to worry about breakage and that type of thing. But yeah, just kind of wanted to give a very high overview of that sword, and thanks for watching.